Ultralight, a two-seater vampire with twice the engine capacity. It'll be good for 140 knots or 8.5 hours of cross-country endurance. Now that's what I call flying.
And two.
The first stage of the flight is from Perth, Western Australia, north to the coastal town of Port Hedland. The real journey is across the almost uninhabited centre of the continent to Port Macquarie on the coast of New South Wales. Limited fuel capacity means that the ultralights have a maximum range of only 200 kilometres. The journey is to be conducted in a series of short hops, clinging to the roads and tracks that can provide safe landing. The ultralights are basically a single wing, underslung with a simple structure made up of aluminium struts. The pilot rides in a hammock of nylon mesh, and there's little protection from the elements. The planes carry a ballistic parachute, which will bring both aircraft and pilot to the ground in an emergency. Don McNaught flies the larger two-seater light-wing aircraft.
Any minute now, I'll be crossing the Tropic of Capricorn. Yeah, how can you tell? You stick your head out and read the road sign.
Frail little birds, off to conquer a continent. The flight across the centre of the continent is to take almost a month. Before the real journey begins, there's time out to explore some of the sights of the Western Australian coast. The dolphins prove exceptionally friendly. One thing in desperately short supply in the inland is water. The ground crew find plenty of it here. It's a scene that will be remembered with nostalgia when the expedition moves into the parched desert country yet to come. Meanwhile, Tony finds a turtle. A bit of a scrub up, and the turtle goes home to mother, as good as new.
Place him up there and you'll grab him over there. Whoa, he's off. Oh, look at that.
The Western Australian coast is geologically significant, and there's abundant evidence of Aboriginal occupation, going back thousands of years before European settlement. This was once a reef, the sandstone pitted by the sea in ancient times, but now above water and overtaken by scrub. The signs of an Aboriginal presence are everywhere. Many of the markings are familiar, others are more puzzling. The reef is now an island, still surrounded by sea. But somehow, wildlife has found a home here, and apparently is prospering. Port Hedland, mechanical repairs continue well into the night as aircraft undergo a final overhaul. This is a difficult and dangerous journey. Lives depend on getting things right.
I'll just run through it briefly.
The final briefing on the eve of departure from Port Hedland, the beginning of the adventure that will test every member of the expedition.
Two reserve vehicles, which I'm calling
Private Glenda Webster, communications operator, is one of the 4 female members.
Truck and one's tyre truck. Okay, so that's the cargo.
Everyone here has volunteered.
Romeo 1.
Each is, in a sense, privileged.
And Graham and Sarah are in the tyre truck.
They're bound for a region of Australia few have entered before.
There'll be another truck.
A blood-red dawn. To the east, a continent away, is the Pacific. The journey begins. This is the real inland. The place of awesome emptiness. The no man's land. The never never. Even most Australians fail to realise the immensity of the empty heartland. This one state alone, Western Australia, is 4 times the size of Texas, 5 times larger than France, 7 times bigger than Japan. Its interior is almost totally uninhabited.
Past 6 in just outside Port Hedland, where we made camp last night. We stayed about 30 kilometres out of Port Hedland. The best thing about it is we're on our way. This is the very first part of the crossing of the continent, and the feeling amongst the
Captain Nick Chesler, the expedition's media relations officer.
Really, good coordination now, and everybody's behind the exercise, and so it's a very positive feeling, and things are progressing well.
Where's it up, Major Confer?
It has a broken right wheel. It requires a new wheel on the right-hand side.
So soon after the departure from Port Hedland, the first major mishap.
And also refuel both aircraft, over.
This is Alpha 3. Alpha 1, that should be wheel on left-hand side, over.
Alpha 1, roger, out to you. For Jet 2, if you're ready, that is the wheel on the left-hand side that is broken. And Alpha 3 and Alpha 2 are both landed and will require fuel. Alpha 1, out.
See the scrape on the end of the wing? The frame looks okay from what I can tell. Have a look in the bag and you see that it's perfectly okay inside. There's no deformation to the strut either.
What speed did you hit it at?
Well, took off and I knew the revs were down a bit, but I thought I'd see if I can get it going. Mucked around with it and the revs started to pick up, and all of a sudden it's flying along and the revs died completely. No matter what I did, I couldn't get the revs up. So I knew I'd have to do a forced landing. I had to put down, and then the engine I lost complete power, and I was over the road. Luckily, I just had to put down where I was. As I landed, I collected a small tree just there on the right-hand wing. You can see the marks on the wing, and that spun me around, and that's where I ended up, just here.
When you come down, you're a bit shaken for a while, and you think reasonably quickly because the adrenaline's pumping. It's not a pleasant feeling at all. It's also, you get very pissed off that something went wrong, because usually it's, in this case, it was out of his control. It wasn't pilot error. There was a maintenance thing with the plane, so he feels rather cheated.
Spares are available. The damage is repaired.
Now I need 2 people on the wingtips. Adrian, gonna need you on the wingtip. And this stuff's gonna probably slow me down, what I might have to get you to do is run along with me for a while to give me a bit of speed up.
All right.
Okay, so one there, one there.
The landscape has begun to alter, and the texture of the desert is emerging. It's winter, the gentlest time of the year in this area. In summer, the land is scorched by ferocious heat, with sustained temperatures in excess of 40 degrees Celsius. The few outback tracks have become more rutted, sometimes disappearing altogether. The red dust rises in clouds. Treacherous terrain.
Charlie 2, this is Alpha 2. Get Sarah and that satellite up here now. We've got some big trouble.
Disaster. A Unimog overturned. A soldier dead. The driver injured.
Right, the satellite terminal is just about to arrive. We'll get it set up. We'll get the flying doctor in, as I said, to Sahara 1 of it.
A serious accident had always been a concern on this expedition, but it was the pilots who had been looked on as being in the greatest danger. A tragedy affecting the ground crew had not been considered a real possibility. The expedition has lost Staff Sergeant Graham McNeice, married and a family man.
It's amazing, isn't it? Some amount of damage to both sides, one gets out with very little damage. So I reckon the theory that he went through the windscreen would be pretty well the case. Oh, nice.
Say that we intend to push on. This incident has occurred, and in no way will it sort of stop us from completing our task. And I think that Graham, in particular, would have wanted that, and I believe that he's sort of bent over backwards to get on this exercise. So we've spoken to the military districts, and they have concurred with our action, that is to push on regardless, and not turn back or do anything like that. And I guess we'll be taking Graham's memory with us to Sydney. All yours, mate.
All travellers who pass this way recognise how unforgiving this country can be. One member of the expedition is dead. The journey goes on, but the mood has changed. Deeper into desert country. The most precious commodity here has always been water.
I reckon that's good water. Right, they're frogs. They're marinating, aren't they? It's the only water you're going to get out here. Like good soup, that'll be better.
Frogs or no frogs, there's no alternative. In the desert, you have to be tough to survive. A week out from Port Hedland, the bush tracks have all but disappeared, and overland travel has been reduced to a crawl. The skill of the pilots is being tested to the limit by landing strips that have become increasingly primitive. Engines are also showing signs of stress.
I'm not getting full power. This engine's starting to sound sick.
the camels are completely at home out here. An almost total isolation. Landing strips have to be created, sometimes 4 or 5 times a day, by advance parties travelling ahead of the aircraft. Worries about crosswinds have caused this ground crew to choose a wooded area, thought likely to offer better protection for the tiny aircraft. A length of rail line, weighted with 1 or 2 soldiers, provides an effective, though rudimentary, clearing device. But sometimes a landing strip that seems adequate on the ground doesn't turn out that way for the pilot.
The airstrip we've located, we're going to clear for you. We believe it's at the base of the Mount Ant range and where the creek line comes in on the road, over.
Yep, roger that, Dave. I've got you in sight. Looks tight, but I'm coming in.
This runway is dangerously short. The tree appears to be to the left of the plane. In fact, it's directly ahead.
High as a bloody fish's arsehole, mate. You reckon you can get that down? Because I was flat out. Tell him I'll put him on the road. There's a road down there.
Stuff or fuel. I know it looks hairy, but I've got to give it a go.
All right, mate. We'll watch that tree that's right on the threshold. You've got to get your wing as close as you can to it.
Got the tree. Coming down now.
Too tight. Mate, it is tight. Too tight.
A serious accident could just have been averted. The expedition has now been underway for 3 weeks, since the departure from Perth. The demands on Chief Mechanic Mick Heffernan have become pressing. On some legs, flying time has totalled 8 hours a day. Now, as the expedition approaches Ayers Rock, the centre of the continent, the strain on both pilots and aircraft has become enormous.
So after seeing the Olgas and Ayers Rock so tantalisingly close, some 80 k's away, we've got to put down here for the night, and the sense of frustration is quite intense. It seems that lately we've been plagued by a whole series of events that are cutting into our flying time, and to be this far from, you know, a mere 50 kilometres from our halfway point, the Rock, is very frustrating.
Not at all.
All sorts of ingenious methods are employed to overcome problems.
Just doing a bit of fine-tuning on it there.
See, it's a fairly new prop, and being a little bit longer than normal, gets too much of a bite of the air, and therefore the engine has to work too hard and it can't get the rev. So what we're doing is trimming the tips off it to shorten them a little bit so the engine doesn't have to work so hard, it hasn't got such a load to push on, and then we can get our maximum revs for takeoff. So what we're doing...
While repairs are underway, visitors arrive. Throughout the trek, through the almost uninhabited Western Australian deserts, there had been little or no contact with other human beings. These Aboriginal children from a nearby settlement make up for that in a big way. Repairs have been completed. The journey continues to the mysterious heart of the continent. Rocks that in Aboriginal mythology belong to the creation of the universe. The resting place of great mythical creatures that rose from the slumbering earth at the beginning of time. The home of spirits that gave birth to man. The land that is God, giving meaning to all life, governing all things. The very centre of the continent, Uluru, Ayers Rock, the largest monolith in the world, the true emblem of a vast and timeless land.
How about that, a real landing strip at last? Ah, civilization, and it's your shout, mate.
After so long in desert country, the arrival at Ayers Rock is a welcome change indeed. There's been no hot water or showers since the departure from Port Hedland. Most nights have been spent sleeping rough, and there's been heavy demands on both pilots and ground crew.
Thank you very much. Easy days, yeah? Thank you very much indeed.
A little pomp and ceremony goes down very well indeed.
Thank you very much for coming in.
Well,
How is
it?
And the scenery is very pleasant too.
And how are you enjoying today?
Great, fantastic.
We better get it.
Good health.
Okay.
It was a very nice landing you did here.
Very good health.
It's now 30 days since the departure from Perth. There's still half the continent to go. From Ayers Rock, the route dips to South Australia, then east towards Port Macquarie and the Pacific coast. The ultralights are now involved in a race against time. Accidents and mechanical problems have put the expedition way behind schedule. The pressure is on, but the horizon is still never ending. It's not only the landscape below that is changing, so are the skies. Rain and the bitter winter cold have moved in to hamper progress. The derelict buildings of the outback provide rough havens for the night. There have been route changes and unexpected obstacles. Pilots and ground crew have been stretched to the limit and are showing signs of exhaustion.
The conditions have been fairly bad. We don't have any prepared airstrips. The weather is a lot worse than what we believed it to be in terms of the rain and the actual temperature that we're operating under. But we're managing to push through and sort of get on top of the situation. We're constantly being nagged by various things like engine problems. Also, our routes had to be restructured at least twice, and looks like we're now doing it a third time. We're having a few red tape hassles with getting into some of the places in terms of airfields, but we're simply flying around those, and I guess that we're sort of pushing on. We've still got a good air of positive expectancy. The people are doing their jobs really well. The motivation is very high, and it seems that every obstacle is thrown at us, like the conditions, we seem to be able to overcome.
You're on.
But the rain and the impossible conditions continue. The ultralights aren't equipped for weather like this. The wooden propellers absorb moisture and become unstable when wet. The aircraft are effectively grounded. The option is to take advantage of whatever warmth and protection there is and wait for the skies to clear.
I believe maintain one at least somewhere along the way and drop in any time. The job's right.
The need to make up for lost time means that pilots have to take advantage of every minute of available light. At this New South Wales country town, the gathering darkness forces an emergency landing in the middle of the main street.
Alpha 3, this is Alpha 2. Just watch yourself coming down, mate. It's getting pretty dark, hard to tell where the ground is, over. Yeah, roger that, out.
Tony is down safely. Mike is next. The ground crew have set up roadblocks to stop traffic. But at the critical moment, one car gets through.
Hey, what happened to the roadblock? How'd he get through? I'm going to have to go around again.
This pub has had plenty of customers, but not many have ever arrived like this.
Boy, do I need a drink. I wonder if this place has got a drive-in bottle shop.
The accommodation is still rough and ready, but the Army's been trained to respond to challenges and overcome any hardship. The cold and rain are still about, but spirits are lifting. Everyone knows now there's not long to go. The towns and cities are appearing more often now. The fields are beginning to green, and there are highways heading to the east.
I think I might get some practice now.
big challenge of the journey, the Great Dividing Range. Bitter cold and treacherous crosswinds make this one of the most daunting tasks of all. For the first time, if anything goes wrong, there's no place to land. Then at last, the sea.
Tony, look at that. That's what we've been looking for, Mick. Beautiful, just beautiful. We made it, mate. We made
it. It took 46 days. 7,000 kilometres were flown. A triumph of courage and persistence in the face of the immensity, the loneliness, and the power of the Australian continent.
Donated video camera means the funniest home videos will be on Sister Kate tomorrow night at 6:30, followed by Fred Savage in The Wonder Years. Coming up next, a Dustin Hoffman movie double. First, the sensational thriller Marathon Man, and then the Academy Award-winning The Graduate.